Hey everybody, welcome to our weekly Ecosystem Office Hours call. I am your host Jinx, and we are joined, as always, by the best and brightest in the Pocket ecosystem. We will start things off this morning with our protocol update from Fred.
Thanks, Jinx. I'll keep it quick today. We are really heads down on the push for VO129. So we expect to have a beta cut and release by the end of this week. That should improve or have some improvements for session rollovers. As we get ready, also, we are working very steadily towards the improvements for validator rewards and delegator rewards. So that is also going to be included in this release, and that is committed for a release date of the 16th. So be on the lookout for that improvement to the protocol. Going further down the list, we're very focused on the scalability of the portal. This is a primary use case for both Path and the portal. And we are doing a number of load tests, which some of the node runners may or may not have noticed on specific services as well as generally. So we're making some improvements to Path and the portal as a whole to enhance the throughput capabilities. We are looking at launching several new Cosmos services this week in conjunction with one of the partners in the ecosystem. There'll be more news on that in the coming days. And lastly, we are deploying new infrastructure across the board for our stack. And with that, we are going to start iterating on the portal database, which is now included as part of Path. That is it from our end.
Beautiful, thank you, sir. We will be announcing the new Cosmos chains starting tomorrow, so you can keep an eye on Twitter for that. As these services begin to start getting some traction, you might want to consider adding those within your stack as well. I will say thank you again to everyone for your votes in getting me elected as director on Monday. I guess that's something that's been coming for some time now. It's nice to have the the final elected authority, as it were, so to speak, to continue the work that we've been doing. But that was about 60 seconds of celebration before we started diving back into it. The priorities that we have still remain the same. They are diversifying the ecosystem at large across adoption, across usage, across engineering, across all of those things, and making things easier in general for everyone to participate in the ecosystem at large. So we've been looking at what do we need to do to add additional wallets to Igniter and how to push that out more broadly. What other kinds of infrastructure and ecosystem partnerships can we form aside from Cleomedes, who just started up? And we're talking to other infrastructure participants as well, and not infrastructure participants from the sense of new node runners, but from the perspective of people who are already supporting validators within the greater Cosmos ecosystem and other ecosystems, and making sure that every time people set up chain nodes out there, that they are just thinking, hey, run a Pocket node next to that to make sure that we have access to that data within the network itself. So that's something that we are going to continue to push forward on. We also got the approval from Olshansky on Friday or actually middle of last week, but leaning into Friday to begin moving forward on the IBC integration for the Axelar bridge. So that process and project has begun. We are hoping that we can get everybody coordinated on that and get that launched within as short a time frame as possible. We are hoping to have significant progress to report within the next couple of weeks. And we have all of the same chains that we were running in DeFi, along with some additional ones on that list. I'm certainly open to hearing other people's thoughts on which chains within the IBC support that you would like to see there as part of that initial launch. So please feel free to reach out. I will be doing a keynote in Korea on the 22nd. To talk about Pocket and its vision for the future and to host a developer meetup that day. So if anyone is going to be in Korea Blockchain Week, then please feel free to reach out. I'd love to meet up with y'all while we're there. And I think that's everything on my hot list right now. Ramiro said we need to think in lowering the stake threshold to promote Pocket as a side thing. From a cost perspective, Pocket is near the cheapest it's been to stake in the history of staking. I would be curious to see what kind of pressure there is from that. We haven't seen that as a consideration at all. Nobody's told us in reaching out to add Pocket on that the cost of staking a Pocket node was too high. And we have F chains to help support and launch new chains as they come on board. So we already have a pretty good path for that. But if anyone knows someone who thinks that it's too expensive to bring new chains onto Pocket Network, then certainly send them our way. Happy to talk with them about it. Breezy asked, I'm curious, also something I've been thinking about with services becoming permissionless. How does the network ensure high availability to prevent any sort of outage on the network? That is honestly a question that I think that comes with the ability to stake permissionlessly, and whether people are staking to try to harvest yield or whether they are staking to support a specific chain usage. If there is desire and demand for that chain usage, then there is generally demand to have node support for that. A lot of what we're doing with the F-Chains program is coordinating support for the smaller chains in the network or the less traffic chains in the network to make sure that there's general coverage. But with the session counts or session requirements being as low as they are, we don't have anywhere near the count of nodes required to be able to complete relays in the network. So as long as people have the minimum amount of nodes covered, we're pretty well good on that. But that's something that we'll obviously see with growth. Spending 500 USD in stake to earn just a few dollars and having to deal with current updates is kind of a deal breaker for anyone running home nodes of any kind. Yeah, but we haven't really seen anyone wanting to run home nodes. And again, if you're running just to earn yield, there's probably a number of considerations outside of that entirely. Home nodes, generally are, well, yeah, I mean, chicken and egg problem, sure, kind of. But realistically, we haven't seen a whole lot of people with the infrastructure expertise to run home nodes at any level of performance that would actually stand up well inside the network. So, you don't spend 500 USD in stake, you stake it, you still have it, you have the ability to get it out at any point in time. And generally, the people who are adding staking nodes right now, who are not specifically retail consumers looking to earn yield on that, exactly, Miss Kitty. But they're adding those nodes to provide access to that data on the network. So a security deposit of $500 USD that you can get back at any point in time by unstaking is not in any way a significant barrier to that from what I've seen. Certainly open to meeting and hearing from people who would think otherwise. Go ahead, Arthur.
At-home stake solutions, and they didn't get much traction. And this was in 2021, 2022. Price was different. And even now, after all these years, I mean, most of you, if not all of you, are node runners here. You must understand that running a home node is not viable. Like, unless you are phenomenal at what you do and have low storage costs, and you are near one of these gateways, like literally physically, if we're talking about a home node exactly right next to your desk, it's never going to be profitable. And so if the original vision was, I guess, for Pocket way back when, was to have everyone under the sun kind of run these nodes, but the way it worked out in reality is, even if you got to do that, you would probably make no money at any point in the ecosystem, because it would just never be fine. You would never be chosen as for traffic based on all the filtering and choosing and sanctioning of nodes that happens. It's a very rare chance that you would be selected. On top of that, I think the way people will end up participating in Pocket now that we're in Cosmos is just delegating stake to validators. You can do that directly from Kepler. And that is basically the way that I foresee like mass involvement for people who kind of want like the lowest entry possible to stake, right? Obviously there's the staking tool, the Igniter tool that's live, and that is another way of doing it. But I don't see a world, at least not now, not in the near future, where infrastructure providers, the actual relay miners, are not sourcing liquidity for through their own businesses or providing it themselves. Just because I just don't see another way of doing it. I just don't see home nodes as a viable option. Like, it's going to be validator delegation, like without talking to anyone, or it's going to be staking through Igniter. And I don't foresee home nodes being in either of those scenarios.
And I think it's, you bring up a philosophical point. That's the defeat of Web3. I don't really think that it is, and I think that goes back to something that we've talked about many, many times, which is that the heaviest cost of running infrastructure is running the chain nodes itself. So the challenge for commercial node runners has always been to earn enough yield to offset the cost of running the chain infrastructure. And the biggest pushes for expansion of support and supply in the ecosystem have been for people who are already running that chain infrastructure for other businesses. And so if you are a portal, if you are a multi-ecosystem validator, if you are a service that is already engaging, or if you're running an actual full node at home for other services, I mean, people do that, then adding a Pocket node next to it makes perfect sense from a viability perspective. I don't think that that's all a game for big infrastructure providers. Although that's who has been our primary participants over the last 4 years. But it's about people who are already running data for one reason or another, making that data accessible to the network at large.
Also, like I don't know. Sorry, let me take a step back. My head's all over the place. Ramiro, I don't think it's a defeat of Web3, right? It's the validators that matter at the end of the day. Right now, we have a restricted pool. I'm not sure, and again, this is up to Jinx and the foundation and maybe a DAO vote. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be completely permissionless for the validator pool down the road, but right now we have a restrictive pool, so we can just push updates faster as we kind of are on the tail end of launching Shannon. But it should get to a point where anyone could run a validator theoretically if we want to do that. And at that point, distance shouldn't matter, nor the machine is right. It's just, do you have a large enough stake, and whatever the stake weighted system is for how validators work now. At that point, you do get the kind of the Web3 ethos built in. But for actually processing traffic, this is a business, right? Like, you need to have really great service on both sides, on the supply side and the demand side here. So I think when it comes to that, if that's where your Web3 ethos lands, then sure, if you have that mindset, it's not going to work out. But if you have it on the validator end, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I was not talking about validators. I was talking about, I've had, for example, a Bitcoin node at home, and I could stake it to the Pocket network. But having 60K Pocket staked to a node that will be only providing for one chain makes no sense. It's a lot of shop. It's not really hard for me. I'm part of the community, but saying, man, I have to look up 60K of Pocket to earn, maybe a couple of transactions a day, because nobody's using Bitcoin. It makes no sense. So Pocket doesn't have my Bitcoin node. And why is that?
Right.
Maybe
I run a
can
Bitcoin node. I'm exactly like you, but it just means we need to, 60,000 isn't set in stone. It's just what we did because of legacy and what we migrated because of legacy. But potentially there's a world in the future we can do sliding scale, right? We can do it from 0 to infinity if you want for relay miners. I'm just saying, you don't have to operate, and it's been hard for me, by the way, to break out of what used to be and what is currently feasible and possible. And if all of this takes just a few DAO votes in the new world to do, then yeah, why not move away from this bridge where you can stake 1,000 Pocket rather than 60,000, and then have your Bitcoin mining back? I would love to do that. I myself, like I said, I run my own nodes too, personally at home, but I can't put them on a network either, because I don't feel like locking that up. I'd rather lock it up with a professional provider right now, because I don't trust myself individually as a node runner.
Yeah, I think that we are in the same mindset.
We're talking about incentives, right? And we're talking about who are the kind of people who are running nodes at home. Ayes mentions that he was running 16 chains from home since November. It was profitable on Morse, not on Shannon. I have 17 milliseconds from Denmark to central Germany data centers. That is a wildly, unusually effective home node setup. That's the reality. The vast majority of US participants, for instance, are not going to get anywhere near that level of low latency. That's just not going to happen. So it's, why are people participating in the network? If it's for pure yield, yeah, sure. If you don't want to put it in, if you don't want to lock it up at your home node, you want to lock it up somewhere else, cool. But I don't really think that we're talking about, if you look at $500 USD as a proof of stake lockup, that is wildly cheaper than a number of other proof of stake chains. You can go lock up 32K for an Ethereum node. That's just a whole different ballgame, right? So, it's why are people participating? People are participating to add their data to the network more so than for raw yield. They already have the node running. You are opting not to lock up and stake against your own node. You're opting to use a network provider anyways. But you're also someone who's very deeply integrated into the network, and you're fully aware of all the options, and you're looking to optimize to the best possible choice that you have. The majority of new people that we're working with and that we're recruiting are people who are already running that infrastructure. They are either adding themselves to the network and making secondary use of infrastructure that they're already running. And so it doesn't make any sense at all for them to go stake with a third-party node runner provider, because they already have the data. They just need the ability to connect that data to the network. And that's a different scenario.
Yeah, I understand that the people that you're talking to right now, it's not the same that I'm referring to, but I thought it was a good time to discuss this 60K number, because it ended up there like rather randomly and affects hobbyists. And
it didn't end up there randomly at all. There was nothing random about that. We can certainly talk through the process.
Yeah, the process was 50K at some point because randomness. Then they decided to use PIP22, and then we had to migrate, and PIP22 was not compatible with Shannon. Then we end up in 60K, a number that was never meant to be used for anything, because when I asked at the start of PIP22, they said they didn't want to increase the stake threshold to 60K. They want to keep it at 50K. So the process was not like a really thought decision. It ended up in 60K and the token value is low, so nobody's complaining a lot.
Well, let's clarify on that real quick. More than 80% of the network was staked at 60K.
Sure.
And there was no effective way to change that. And so the thought out and proposed and planned and agreed upon solution was to set the threshold at 60K and to auto unstake anything less than that so that it could be coordinated without a downtime. There was nothing random about that. There was a ton of planning and conversation that went into it. So as a baseline level set, we can start there. Now, if you don't like the number, then that's certainly something we can talk about.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the process was random. The process was clear. The number has no real justification. That's the only thing I'm complaining. And I don't like the number because I think it's high if you have one single service, and also there is no reason why a node should hold infinite number of chains with the same number of stake. We could think of process like the amount of tokens you stake is proportional to the chains or services that your node can service. Shannon enabled us to create new mechanics for this. So at some point, and I hope it doesn't take like 1 year, we should improve the staking threshold for servicers, not for validators. Validators is just another game. Here we're talking about people trying to provide service, and maybe they only have one service. So why are they paying the same price as people staking 28 different services for the same stake level? So I don't like that.
I think there's a lot of room for conversation there. I mean, staking per service at a much smaller amount, I think, is a logical approach to that. I'd certainly love to. And you're someone who is a gigabrain when it comes to data science and statistical and mathematic projections. So I imagine that that's a conversation that's probably worth having. I think staking per service makes a lot of sense, personally. As opposed to just stake a node and how many services are connected to it. We've had multiple conversations around how many services should a node be able to stake to. We've had, a ton of coordination issues around that. I think removing stake to node as a concept and just staking per service makes a hell of a lot more sense. And then, hell, make it 1,000 pocket per service. I mean, and if somebody wants to max out their node and stake, 60 services to it to get back to 60,000, then that's something they can do, assuming that that's supported. But obviously there are second order impacts to that sort of approach, and we have to think about QoS and coverage and all the rest of that. So I imagine that you are quite capable of building out models that could, provide some analysis of those effects. And something we could bring before the DAO. I'm totally in support of that conversation.
Yeah, I plan to do that once I get some free time.
Do you get much free time?
Oh, sure. I'm just a programmer. We have lots of free time.
Miss Kitty also mentions that QOC as a home node runner is often an issue. And yeah, I mean, it's, I am capable of running nodes here. I run nodes for some very lightweight other chains to get a sense of what it's like running validators. But, if a hurricane comes through and knocks my power and internet out, I'm down hard. There's a reason that a lot of people, the majority of people, run nodes in data centers and such, and it's to address those issues: high availability power, machine uptime, internet connectivity uptime, not just performance at large. So it's not a matter of, to what degree are people running home nodes. Decentralization can be done through, 100,000 baby data centers and even home closets if they are appropriately equipped. The only real separation between a pro node runner and an amateur node runner is a pro node runner, even in their home, probably has backup power, backup internet, all the rest of those things that are required to maintain high uptime. And that's what the point of proof of stake is. It is penalizing you for bad behavior on the network, and bad performance is one example of bad behavior. So, I mean, that's not a bug. That's the system working as designed. Breezy talking about adding stake per service and in combination with stake per region. I mean, I'm open to a lot of approaches here, but it seems to me that we solve the whole how many services are available to each node question by just making it stake per service. If you've got a node running on a monster server with 10 terabytes of RAM, why can't you run 100 services on it? As long as the performance and QoS is there. I really do think stake per service is an idea that has a lot of teeth that should probably be chewed on. Speaking of governance, I'll insert here that we've had the pre-proposal around the revised governance model up in the forum for a couple of weeks, and no one has commented on it. So if you are interested in governance in any way at all, I would implore you to take a look at that. We will be moving it to the proposal stage soon and opening up formal debate. So
sorry, but I have done a very short answer to that thread. I'm offended.
But you're like in the mix. That's the thing. We already think of you as being part of the core team, I think. Well, aside from Ramiro, nobody else has added that in. Other questions, thoughts, topics? Holiday weekend here, but I will take a look tonight. Yep, sure thing. How do you have a holiday weekend on a Wednesday? Like, where is that at? I need to be wherever that is. Yeah, that's just a whole weekend. All right. I think Wednesday is about as far from weekend as you can get. We have typing. We have typing. XRPL relays are up, but Solana relays dropped off. Anything interesting or just the swings of business?
I'm just gonna say it's always the swing of the business. Like always. Like relays will go up and down no matter what. Like someone will sneeze and relays will go shoot through the roof, and someone will sneeze again and then relays will just die, like they did on Kaya for a period of time. Right now, I think Fred said that we are working through load testing issues. We found a bottleneck on like the uppermost RPS we can do, something that we didn't have pre-path, and we are in the process of fixing it. So that this will enable us to go, I think we were shooting somewhere between 35 and 50,000 RPS is where we were shooting. So this is at the gateway level. So that we're trying to unblock a bottleneck right now that we have internally. So if you see any bursts that are non-sustained, it's us testing it probably, or a couple of our customers just doing an upgrade on their end and then falling back track.
We had a user recently who came in off of a Web 2 pipeline through Google Marketplace who was a heavy user of Solana. It seemed to correlate pretty tightly with the launch of the Kanye West coin, but they have since kind of dried up. They were a top user for a while.
Yeezy coin with your Yeezys. Okay, well.
Regarding XRPL relays being up, it just Ripple keeps sending us customers, and we keep onboarding them.
Which is exactly what we expected from XRPL, which is not a flood of 100 billion relays overnight, but consistent growth as the EVM sidechain is adopted and as our interactions with that ecosystem increase. So. Kojak asks, yeah, you were literally asking questions that were all answered at the beginning. See how it is? Yeah, Olshansky has signed off on passing the rest of IBC integration and Axelar over to the foundation. So we are spinning up our engineering side to get that completed and across the line. We don't have an ETA yet. Everybody is just now getting their hands around what needs to be done still to get that finished and starting our conversation with Axelar. But we are hoping in short order. I remember a while back, Olshansky had said that he thought there was an estimate of around 2 weeks from Axelar once they started. But we'll see if that's still the case and what their timeline is on being able to start. We will have updates on that in short order. Also, drastic increases in relay insight like new customers. Generally, you don't see a ton of drastic relay increases in new customers. It's more like testing and onboarding. So I don't know if you're talking about, will we see 100 million new relays overnight? Probably not.
I think that there's a little bit of a misconception of the scale of relays too. I'll just cite an example. So Infura's DIN, a decentralized infrastructure initiative, which is basically their version of POKT, they're only doing 200 million requests per day on that. So I think that, like, obviously that's a alpha/beta product, but the number of relays that we expected to be around in today's day and age, that scale is probably reduced from 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really important point that I think a lot of people don't really understand. 2020, 2021, 2022, the bull run meant that there were like hundreds and hundreds of millions, billions of transactions every day through a absolute shit ton of projects. And most of them were coming in through a fairly small number of we'll call them ingress points, for instance. Like Infura was servicing MetaMask, and MetaMask was the wallet that everyone was using. So that was a single large demand aggregator, shit tons. But even then, we're talking like maybe 10 billion relays per day at its peak, right? And now there are tons and tons of wallets that are out there. So they're spread out across a number of individual providers. Everybody's slice of that pie is a lot smaller. And I've said this many times in the past, focusing on pure RPC as an instant overnight billion relay kind of thing, that's just like not going to happen anymore until we're at a place where crypto has broad enough adoption that it's taking over a number of non-crypto network traffic, like banking and more traditional payment solutions and things along that line. You just do not have, NFTs by themselves were a massive source of data relay traffic, and NFTs are basically dead at this point. So the actual marketplace at large has gotten significantly smaller, and you don't have anywhere near as many of these single large scale users as you used to have. They're a lot more divided up. And that's one of the reasons why it's so incredibly important for Pocket to be diversifying its user base and really driving adoption of the people that we claim to care about: dApps, developers, smaller individual gateways, incubators, all of these other types of users, because horizontalization is what matters. We can't expect to just find the Nike of relays overnight and all of a sudden everything goes up to 10 billion relays a day. That's just not going to be the case. We are plugged in with multiple partners and multiple developer groups and providers within the ecosystem. We are doing the things that you do to grow a business and to grow a network. We are bringing on new partners. Grove itself has offered to help onboard some of our new gateway partners as well, to get Path out there in usage across a number of fronts. But it's got to be horizontal growth. We cannot expect straight vertical demand. Grove is in a position to be able to do some vertical growth, and that's cool. But even then, they're still looking at the same marketplace that the rest of us are. We need tons and tons and tons of actual individual users who are doing the work to integrate and connect directly with the network. So that's got to be the focus.
I'll second that and say that additional verticals are where additional demand can be found, very likely in the very near future.
And that's one of the reasons why it was so important for us to be able to move beyond pure RPC, because that is purely just a commodity. It's been a race to the bottom, and a number of people who've played in the RPC space are dead now, entirely dead, not just hyperbolically dead because you don't like the price action, but fully dead, closed network, dark dead. And the same thing has happened with a lot of AI startups as well. I've got some holdings from AI startups that were trying to change the world, and they are currently 0.0000001 satoshis per token. So that's the nature of business. And as the business cycles move from boom to bust, we see winners and losers, and we see people that hang on and survive and maybe make it big later on. I am not trying to pull the hyperbole trigger when I refer back to Amazon, a company that everyone swore was dead before it took over the world. But the fact is, surviving and moving forward through the hard times is often the sign that the company has longevity in front of it, or the project has the potential for longevity, even if it's not doing wonderfully right now. But we've gone through some pretty big changes. We've cleaned out some infection. We now have a freshly cleaned and packed wound that is on its way to healing. And as long as we're taking care of it and changing out the wrappings and making sure that it's in an environment to heal and feeding its host, we will get back to the place where we were and move beyond that. And move beyond that in a way that's actually sustainable and actually growable. Move beyond that to a place where we start moving towards 10 billion relays a day, because we're not just trying to serve this tiny constrained RPC market. We've moved way beyond that. So, that's the focus and the vision for the future. What part of the cycle is this one? Meek Mill working on a tool to change the world. Oh, okay.
Pre-bull.
Yeah, definitely pre-bull. Oh, believe me, I know who Meek Mill is. My neighbors know who Meek Mill is against their will. I assume that he's vibe coding, and if anyone is qualified to vibe code, it's a rapper. Other thoughts, topics, interesting points of contention? I'll give it another minute here to see if there's any more typing. I saw Kojak was about to type some more, I think.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
For the record, just like, because I know this used to be an issue where people, for whatever reason, worried that PNF and Grove were in collusion. Like, we're not, because there's a lot of stuff that happens that neither party knows about. So regarding the governance changes that are that were being worked on, can I ask, or dare I ask, is there a timeline for this to go live? And what's the like process? Is there like another vote that needs to happen that basically says, hey, we're killing PNF, we're killing the current setup in favor of the new Cosmos setup? Like, what are the steps? And if there's a document somewhere and I just haven't read it, let me know.
See, now I'm going to remind you that not 10 minutes ago, I literally just said, go look at the fucking pre-proposal on the floor.
I saw the pre-proposal. I saw the semantics, the nuances of what's going to change, like the quadratic voting and everything. I'm just curious. I'm doing six things at once.
That is the pre-proposal that is there. It will move into a proposal stage, which opens it up for formal debate. And all of the people who are responsible for creating that proposal will be there to, engage with the community at large and all the rest of that. And then after an appropriate amount of debate time, typically for something this size, we expect, around 2 weeks of debate. And it really just comes down to, have we gone a few days past the core default, base amount of debate time, and not seen any more responses. And at that point, it's considered to have concluded debate, and then we put it up to vote. And then once it's put up to vote, we will start the transition and migration process, assuming that it passes. Raid Guild and Merdad specifically have a tool that will allow for migration of existing forum posts and such into a new platform. So we would be moving to Cosmos Hub, which is where all the other Cosmos chains have their forums set up, and go through the process of what's required to build out the pieces that would support our integration with validator-based voting. And then there are a couple of interesting ideas in there that I think a lot of people might really be, tuned into. So I encourage you to actually take a look. I think the caucus idea is very strong, and it's something that's been talked about a lot in the past. And the model that we've put together here is, I think, incredibly representative for specific builder types or ecosystem participant types. So if you're a node runner, if you're a developer or whatever, you have the ability to group up with others who are also the same and cast your vote collectively for how a validator votes. So, and we get around the limitations of, some of the other more plutocratic systems, because of the fact that the foundation itself is running validators as votes and delegating those votes to the community at large. So we maintain a lot of the same things same values that we hold in regards to individual voters and their votes within the ecosystem. So I encourage you to read that document, and it's there. Other questions? All right. Well, that brings us fairly near the top of the hour, so we'll call it here. As always, appreciate everyone joining, and we'll see you same time, same channel next week.